podcast. My name's Tom Pacello. I'm the founder and partner at Genius Drive, and joining me is April Morley. Hi, April.
Thanks for having us, Tom. So I'm also a partner and founder at Genius Drive.
Awesome. Value Coffee Talk is all about value. We're here to help you and your organization better communicate and quantify your value to customers. And our first guest in our inaugural session is Aaron Froberg. Aaron, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Thanks, April. Happy to be
Aaron,
here. And coffee is a great thing, so good idea.
exactly. Now it is a little bit late in the afternoon that we're recording this. I hope we don't keep you up too late at night, and don't blame us, Aaron. Aaron was the head of the value practice at Egnyte, which is a content management organization, and he led the worldwide practice. He created that from scratch. Aaron was a customer of mine at Mediafly in doing that. So we got to see, we basically had a front row seat to the wisdom and the expertise that Aaron applied to start that program from scratch. So Aaron, we can't wait to hear some input from you on a very important topic. There's a lot of buzz about taking a value lifecycle approach to value. And I want to know, what does that mean to you, and why do you think it's so important to look at value that way?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's one of the things that, before I jump into why it's so important, I think one of the things that I learned the most through maybe even making a few mistakes right up front. So, coming in, there's usually and I've talked to many organizations and many value experts in the profession around this as well, but there's usually an assumption of what do we need to do today, day one, what do we need to fix or put in that emphasizes value, and it almost always is some type of business case right at the point of a new deal, at the point of selection. So, and that's super valuable and super important, but often what happens is once you get started down that road, you miss the opportunity to get everybody on board up front. And talking to the executives, this is something that they definitely, different groups knew about what was being brought to the table, right? As you start building a value practice or you make that decision from an executive level. But I don't think the majority of the groups involved in the buyer journey, because it is a cycle and it is a constant bunch of, many touch points throughout that interaction. I don't think that everybody understood fully what it means to embed value in the company, right? And to take a step back before you start building and look at it as links in a chain, because that's really what it ends up being at the end of the day. And if those links aren't strong and it doesn't flow in a logical way, in a way that feels to the buyer that, hey, they care about value all the way across the board, not just at the point of sale, right? And so taking a step back and looking at the whole picture, to me, is extremely valuable and one of the first things that you have to do if you want to be successful long term.
I think if you don't do that, it can isolate the program, which you alluded to, where, hey, if you start with a business case in sales, or you go and you hire a bunch of value consultants to go and do it, is marketing on board at that point? Or are they isolated from it? What about customer success? And so by taking a much more holistic view, I think you get everyone involved and engaged. April, your program started out of marketing and the messaging. That was where you had decided to start your program at Alteryx.
It was really within the innovation team where they hosted new projects. And I thought that was a great opportunity to have a cross-functional view of the organization. It was within a strategic function. So I thought that cross-functional view made a huge impact in being able to create a broad function.
Yeah. Aaron, where did you start your program?
Yeah, we started in sales specifically, and in new logo. So
Okay.
the new logo team, and we really started at sort of the top level senior sellers for the most part. But that's where we started off. We went everywhere else, but we started there.
Yeah. Would you recommend that as the good starting point?
Um,
Do you think it would have been better if it would have been kind of somewhere else?
yeah, it's a natural point because I think you can get very quick wins that way And there's always, with senior sellers, right, there's an understanding of value kind of implicitly already, just innately, right? So it can accelerate their understanding of it, how to bring it up, how to propose it, and that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a decent place to start, but I think it would change. I don't know that there's one perfect place to start. It really depends on what the organization is challenged with the most. And if
Hmm.
in some cases, if you don't really have you haven't mapped out your use cases, and you haven't mapped out or quantified anything necessarily around what those things deliver, you might want to start upstream and talk with the product team and really do an evaluation of what are we solving, what is our main purpose, and what are the things that customers and the market really values the most, and then develop that out and map out your use cases and map out what data points, because really a lot of value in the value team is shepherding data and analyzing it. So it's finding the data points that are out there, helping to suggest what data points to look for, and then shepherding that data between the different teams that often, it gets fractured because there's some silos or there's some walls between it, right?
Now, I'd love to go back to the value life cycle itself. And you kind of use the analogy of a chain, thinking about it as a chain. So how do you define value life cycle?
Um, I essentially defined it as the relationship, right? The relationship that you're going to have as a consultative partner on whatever it is that problems and challenges of your customers that you're solving. And so that when you have a relationship, do you just have a relationship when it comes to selling one product at one point in time? No, I mean almost every product you're looking for return sales, and especially in SaaS, you're looking for renewal and subscription and continued partnership. And if you don't treat it like a living, breathing relationship in all aspects across the cycle, and that means, up front, how do you attract people with value? How do you really get them interested in things that that they're their problems? You identify that you can solve their actual problems they care about, and then how can you? Everyone says they solve these problems in the market, but do you have more valid data points, more compelling data points to kind of prove that out at the start and your advertising and everything else? That's one way to do it. And then how do you go through the process of learning about deeply what their challenge was when they come up front as part of the initial sale, and then as you go through that process, are you making sure that your value focus is, when you're presenting the business case, you're not just presenting some generic values. You're presenting exactly what they told you their problems are, right? And just focus on those alone. You might have a ton of other use cases, but focus on what their challenges is and then outlining what that is. But then are you just going away after you're sold? No, you're going to get them ready. And this is one of the mistakes I think me personally or my team made sometimes, is we didn't think about day 600 or day 300. And so you don't get them ready to understand that in 180 days we're going to come back and we're going to look at how we did. If they weren't prepared that was going to happen, when you go back and try to do it, they look at it as you being opportunistic, right? You're going to be there just to come in and try to get the renewal. But no, if you set them up ahead of time that this is what we believe in, this is how we operate, it works a lot better. And so that's the next step in the chain, is customer success, doing the QBRs. Are they value oriented? Do you have, value professionals guiding that conversation, or at least helping train your CS team to do that? And then it just keeps flowing into, now what I'm really interested in, and I'm probably, maybe I'm one of the few that gets so crazy about product because I was technical. I came from the technical side back in the day, but like, if you're not continuously developing your product around real customer value and what the new ones are, because you develop a calculator up front, a BVA, well, that's a point in time. You're solving these problems that are important in 2023, and these are the values. But in 2024, the problems could completely change. You could have a pandemic, right? Which happened. So how do you go back and how do you address with the product team, and how do you measure what are the things we should be developing based upon customer perceived value, and then how does that match up with actual quantifiable value that the market is proving out, or that just even doing a financial model will prove out is actually valuable. And then when we release it during product release, how are we releasing the value of it, being the quantified value, into the field in the sales enablement group, so that it actually doesn't just show up as here's a bunch of new features and functions that you can advertise or you can try to sell, but here's what the difference is in value, and this is why they care about it. That's how you really get sellers to make an impact, in my opinion.
Love it. And you're going from marketing and the kind of attracting to the customer to selling, engaging, and ultimately creating the business case and the financial justification, to the implementation, to customer success. And then what a lot of people forget is how does that then inform product, the product roadmap, what gets worked on, what doesn't get worked on, to accelerate product development for what'll add value. And then the other element is how it informs pricing. Because I do think that pricing today is pretty random. It's market based, but it's not value based. And ultimately, I think that's where we need to get to on the product side, is product developed for value and pricing developed for value. Two missing elements I see in a lot of programs that if you start to think about it as a life cycle, it helps to solve.
Absolutely. What did you guys do specifically around product measuring it? Is there anything that you did or have any experiences with that?
Yeah, April?
Yeah, so I mean, we actually didn't get into the product side in our program. We had developed out quite a few different aspects of the organization, whether it's starting with the engage, we went into the sell, and we didn't make it all the way to product, but that was next on the roadmap.
Yeah, and hopefully many
Yeah.
other value practitioners are doing that same thing where they've got it on the list to engage with. Like you said, it could even be a starting point for many organizations, and we'd love to see that. Aaron, where were you challenged the most? I know that you tried to implement a full life cycle approach, but you also didn't quite get all the way there in the time that you had.
Yeah, I think it goes back to, the reasoning a little bit was what I talked about in the beginning, which is I don't think, I had to go backwards a little bit because I don't think everyone realized the level of involvement that would be had by the leadership in the different teams. And so that set it back a little bit and had to do some rework around. And one of the things that might be a tip for those looking to do this is we had to establish what we called essentially value workshops. And those value workshops were all about whatever the element was that we're trying to tackle or improve in the life cycle. And so we had to go back and talk to the product team because that's one part of the value life cycle. We had to go back and do a workshop, and we never got to a full workshop with customer success, which in the value realization part, I guess that leads to my point of where we struggled a little bit, and it had to do with we're thinking about things at day 1 through 90, but we weren't necessarily thinking about everything or partnering well enough to think about what happens at day 300 or whatever it is, right? And so then the struggle was we made a lot of progress, and we're making a lot of progress as I exited the company as well. But we had to go back, establish even better relationships with customer success, and then go out and do sort of value interviews to some friendly customers and really ask them. And a lot of these we picked customers that were kind of on the fence or didn't have the greatest health, because we really wanted to show them that this is what we care about, is you getting value out of your subscription or of the sale. And so we went in and had to go and travel around and do these interviews to really rediscover and reestablish that relationship on value.
Yeah.
So if we would have done that up front, or that would have been done a lot earlier, we would, I think, had even more expansion success for sure.
Yeah, I think the constraint in resources is often a big challenge, because if you think about the entire customer life cycle in one single team owning the value conversation or articulation of value to the customer, that's a huge job. And so it's actually not that surprising that, you get from the first engaged conversation through the sale and then expanding into value realization is a big project, and especially getting into the product side is a big project. And oftentimes value teams are not that large and may be underfunded, so it can be a challenge for them to achieve what they'd like.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we found. And, that's why leveraging those upfront relationships and really getting, the leadership have to, foster this, that we are going to be a value-oriented, value-led organization. And that means that you have to put time to this, right? And make it something that's either part of MBOs or whatever, because it needs to be linked in somewhere so that they're held accountable to it, right? If they want to do it.
Yeah. Aaron, we're floating this idea of a chief value officer. I want to get your thought on that. We think value is that important. We think it's as important as data or intelligence or some of the other, compliance, security. There's chief security officers now. Why not a chief value officer?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I wanted to be a chief value officer 3 years ago. So, I mean, again, when you get embedded, and if you really care and are passionate and are somebody who just throws themselves into an organization to push value, quantify it, and help. And like you said, or like we've all said, the life cycle of it becomes, it's glue. It's like you're embedded everywhere in the organization. So, and sometimes the challenge was, it was a lot of C-levels. That's who you're talking to. And if you don't, it's a human nature thing. It's very strange. Titles to me don't mean really anything. But at the end of the day, sometimes to get movement or get people on the same page, coming from a director or senior director or whatever is different than coming from another C-level, in this case. So I think that might help just because of human nature to some extent. I don't know if you guys saw the same thing, but
April?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's all about influence, right? And so if you want to create change across an entire company, you need to have the right people behind you. And I think a lot of times those people have a chief title, and a chief value officer can have a peer-to-peer relationship with people that they have to influence. So I agree with that, Aaron.
Aaron, what's the one thing you'd like to leave everyone, our value warriors, with today about the value lifecycle approach?
One thing is pretty tough. I wish I could encapsulate one thing. Let me try here. I think one thing that I could leave people with is, set the stage for it being a constant evolution, and up front, and I probably said it to death, but up front, make sure that you can get as many people as possible and show them the forest, show them the map of what mature looks like, and then realize you can't do it all today or tomorrow or next year, and really just put those goals out there. Focus on one thing. If you can, do it really well, and then move on to the next and keep chipping away at the stone like that.
Excellent. Aaron, thank you so much for participating in our value coffee talk today.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Cheers.
Thank you, Aaron.